Hey guys, before we get started, we want to shout out all of our awesome partners, including Hicks Chiks, Trinity Medical, Gregg Vet, Magnolia Bluff Casino, Weeks Furniture, and all of the awesome partners that you see on the screen right now. Make sure to do business with them, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hey guys, Ronnie and Shannon here with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight. We have our good friend Tiana Goodrich in the studio today. How are you?
I'm well. How are y'all doing?
Doing good.
Well. Thanks for being here today.
Of course.
I'll let you go first.
Okay,
you
sounds good.
Off?
I sure will. So, Tiana, tell us a little bit about you and what brought you to Natchez, where you're from, and just kind of a little bit of info and share with our audience.
Sure.
Where are you from?
I am just 25 years old. I'm originally from northeast of Atlanta, Georgia. Ended up going to Florida for college and hung around. The sunshine kind of grasped onto my soul. And I met my lovely boyfriend, Frankie, who found out that there is an ever-growing aviation industry here in Natchez. So he was hired as a CFII, Chief Pilot Instructor, at the Natchez Flight Training, and that's how we got here just a couple months ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah. And how long have you been here in Natchez? Like a couple?
Since August.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So 3 or so months, almost 4 now.
Okay.
Well, welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
glad to have y'all.
This is quite an interesting town.
Yes, it is. I grew up here, so I know.
That's one way to put it.
That's right. In a good way.
Yeah. Well, Tiana is she's doing some work with us, as you know, at Mile 363. You work with us on your slower days, and we started talking one day, and I found out that you've got a really interesting story, and I was like, wow, we've got to sit down and talk about this. So what I want to do is I want to start with spoiler alert, and I want to tell the end of your story, if that's okay, and then we'll go back. So basically, you were adopted at an early age. I think twice. We'll get to that. You were adopted twice, and your message that you want to put out to the world now is that the bond between adopted families, it can oftentimes be just as strong as the bond with traditional families.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So that's sort of the end. But I want to go back to the beginning. Let's just kind of go back to whenever your earliest memories, and let's just walk through it like that.
Yeah. So I actually don't have many memories from 3, 4 years old up to 6 years old when I was adopted. I've only heard through police reports and from, my social worker that it was a lot of, drug type of involvement. My biological dad was a drug dealer and my biological mom was a drug addict. So it was kind of the perfect storm for them. And that left me, high and dry in hotels and bad places I shouldn't have been, just involved in violence and drugs at a young age. So I was removed when they were both incarcerated and given to a distant family member, who is now my mom, Krista.
So what age were you whenever this was happening?
So at 6, they were both incarcerated at the same time, which obviously led the law to get involved and have to rehome me or put me in the system.
And you were saying that you don't have any memories of say the hotels and stuff like that. Do you have any memories of that?
No, I don't. And I think it's a trauma response because you do remember things from 4 years old, onward. But I don't.
Yeah. Huh.
So I think it's more of a trauma.
Your brain protecting you, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what about so they were both incarcerated at 6 years old, and then what happens after that?
So I was given to my biological father's older sister, actually. So I was blood related to the family, and it was just supposed to be until they were able to get released from prison. But as their sentences kept, piling on, and it was evident that they weren't going to be released, my biological parents actually signed their parental rights away, which led me to be adopted by my now mom. She's technically my second cousin by blood, but yep, she took me.
And what age was that?
That was 6.
6, so still 6. Okay.
Okay, so now you're with a new family.
Up in North Georgia. And my mom, so when she adopted me as a single mother, which was another kind of ailment to my story, or part of my story, because especially where I was raised in the suburbs of Atlanta, it wasn't common. A lot of families there were, prayed for and thought of and hoped for. So I kind of fell in my mom's lap, and people couldn't understand. Already I was this troubled adopted child, but then also she was a single mom. So people couldn't see why she was even bringing me into this unstable household or environment. But compared to what I'd obviously been through, it was a world of difference. She actually started dating and kept that from me. It's like she would go on secret bowling date nights where she eventually met my dad, Co-Lin. They dated for 4 years, and he eventually asked me to adopt me. So when I was 13 years old, so probably around 8 or 9, they started dating. And then when I was 13, he took the final plunge. He's like, there's no going back. So he went ahead and adopted me. So now they're both my legal parents.
And what's your legal mother's name?
Krista.
Krista, okay. Krista and Kyle.
Krista and Co-Lin, yep.
Okay. So
And Tiana.
Go ahead.
Okay. Throw her in there.
Yeah, Krista. Yeah. Kyle, Krista, and Tiana. So talk a little bit about your memories with Krista before Co-Lin came in.
So I was a very anxious child. I had separation anxiety, to put it very mildly. Actually, how I learned how to swim was I couldn't stand to be away from my mom. So she jumped in and went off the slide. My grandparents had a big houseboat growing up. So she went off the slide of the houseboat, and I was screaming bloody murder. But the only way to get to her was to also go down the slide and go into the lake. So that's what I did, and that's how they taught me how to swim. Oh. So I was very much attached to her hip. She was my one stability, my one constant that I was always seeing. So I latched onto her very quickly. I was even extremely protective when my dad first came around. I didn't like the idea of sharing her much. But yeah, and even to this day, people who meet us, our mannerisms are exactly the same. They're like, you guys look alike, though. We would have never known. I mean, you look just alike. She's blonde. But just the way that we resemble each other and carry ourselves, people still can't believe that we're not biological mom and daughter.
Yeah. And that was she's pretty young, right? Have you seen pictures of Chris? She's pretty young.
She adopted me when she was 26.
Wow.
So she's now 45.
No, we need to cut. No,
Don't make me do math on the cut, though.
She probably wouldn't appreciate that, actually.
She's young.
Yeah, she's a young mom.
That's right. Okay. Good. And then let's talk about, like, once Co-Lin came in, how did that? So you initially didn't care for the fella, huh?
Well, I couldn't stand sharing my mom. I think I was nervous that, why can we trust him all of a sudden? Yeah. But my mom saw that in him, and I was too young to even understand what she saw. And then very quickly, it wasn't easy for him. He came into my life and started parenting me, and I didn't like it all the time. He was very strict. He had rules. He had curfews. He made me do tours, all the things. But once I understood that I was lucky to even have that at all, I came around to it the older and older I got.
Well, 9 to 13 is kind of tough anyway, and that normally in an environment where
Correct.
You're protective and also going through things through adolescence, through those tween and teenage years. So you had a little bit of extra on top of that as well.
Yeah, and that's getting into those middle schools.
The middle schools love them.
Those ever so crazy middle school years.
Right, and they do. They need that extra love. So kind of rolling into that, how did your family and school unit come together? Did you feel like you were supported? What are some things? Because I know we've had conversations about how adults can help children, and as we move into your school-age teenage years, what are some advice or tools that you can give parents, adopted families, and schools advice on how to deal? Because, a lot of times I think kids and adults even hide their trauma a little bit, and then all of a sudden they've had enough and some little something will make a big burst of energy or, hardship. So what are some things maybe to look out for? Because I know teenagers, adults too, try to hide it and be strong for everybody, even when they're going. What are some tips that you could give?
I would say just remember that you're not alone and that everybody has some form of trauma, whether they got a yellow starburst instead of a pink. That's trauma to some people. That is the worst thing that's ever happened to them.
Right.
But the more and more, what I'm realizing, the more and more I open up and share my story, I've got people out of left field. Oh, I was adopted. Oh, my mom remarried, and so then I was adopted. I had a stepfather who's now my dad. It's not as uncommon as you think, and people will relate with you and they'll understand. And if you don't understand, I would just encourage you to try to ask questions and become familiar with uncomfortableness, because it's how you can grow your mindset
and build those relationships.
Correct.
That's key.
And you from hearing, you did a TED Talk a little while back, and there was a part in there where you talked about a really traumatic experience with one of your best friends growing up. You want to kind of go over that a little bit?
Sure. So when I finally started feeling like I had that normalcy in that family, because I had a mom and a dad.
So this is after this is Krista and Co-Lin are together at this point.
I think they were dating.
Or dating at this point.
I was starting to get that normalcy of
feel
family and feel like I'm blending in, if you will. I'm not sticking out with this, adoption. Oh, she's new here, all these other things. And
I'm just trying to kind of set the table for the listeners, for the viewers. Yeah.
And I had gotten in a big fight with one of my best friends in middle school, the kind of fight where mom and her come over, we sit down at the kitchen table, and all four of us try to hash it out and figure out how we can become friends again. And this girl's mom interjects and says, "Oh, sweetie, well, remember, Tiana was adopted, so she doesn't understand." And I'm over here like, I started looking at my mom for her to explain, and my mom was like, "Nope, just the meeting's over. We're good." My mom was furious. She couldn't believe that this other mother would say that. And as it actually turns out, years down the road, this family took in a distant relative of their own and actually adopted a little boy. So I think God works in mysterious ways, and hopefully she doesn't, hopefully she didn't mean it how I took it, but it did leave a impression on me, and it's just funny how things turn out. And she has an adopted child.
Let's talk about that impression at that age and that moment. Take us to where you were at in that moment.
I mean, I just thought there's some sort of bond between her and her mom that I'll never get and I'll never get to experience. There's some sort of love for each other that just beats out whatever my mom and I could try so hard to have.
Which is where your main point that you're trying to get out to the world, right?
Correct.
So that moment is where that stemmed from. That was the seed.
I think definitely. Yeah, that was what made me want to say, no, that you're wrong. And as I've said in my speech, every relationship takes work. So if you're not willing to put, and your spouse, you're not going to be related to your spouse, right? And that love, does anyone argue with that love or how deep that love can go? Most of the time it's deeper than children, mom, dad. So.
Oh, that just breaks my heart though, because I know we've had conversations before and, shared a hug and all of that, because I cannot imagine. I have family members that have adopted children and have grown up with us, and they're just like my cousin's kids, and I wouldn't view them any differently because they were adopted. They were part of our family. And so I just hate that you had to go through that, especially getting to the point of feeling like you belonged, and then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from under you again.
Correct.
So how did you get past that? So you've been through like all of that, and then boom.
So I kind of pushed it away. And then I had a hard time in college. I struggled with mental health, some anxiety and depression. I was Baker acted. And I think that stemmed from me pushing that down and just saying, no, like, I'm not going to acknowledge these naysayers. what I had to do is I had to talk about it, and I had to acknowledge it. I had to acknowledge the fact that, yes, we have had to try a little harder at our relationship. We have had crazy hard times that other people couldn't even fathom, because that's just not something, you don't have to help your child mourn the death of their biological mother or their biological father. That's not things many people get to do. But that made me and my parents stronger. So that, there's two sides to the coin.
Right,
well,
for sure.
Let's talk about that since you brought that part up. Let's talk about your birth mom and your birth dad just a little bit. Kind of give their brief story.
Sure. So my birth mother, Isela, she passed from a drug overdose when I was just 9. So just 3 years after I was adopted. I think me being taken away from her was a lot, and she was obviously very sick. She had a problem, and she just kept going back to jail and prison, so nobody was helping her fix her addiction problem. So she unfortunately overdosed and passed away. And then Todd, my biological father, he stayed incarcerated until he was released for compassionate release, because he was so ill. He was, on the brink of death, if you will, that he finally was released. And the only reason I met up with him and gave him the time of the day and started answering his phone calls from prison, saw him when he was released, is because I just thought I would regret it if I didn't later on in life. And that was extremely selfish of me, but I got to see how, and he's told me to my face, I've always loved you. I've always cared for you. I'm sorry that my priorities are much different. And he even explained to me that his mother passed in childbirth. So he never had a mother. He never had a mother's hug, a mother's love. And so I think that kind of trickled down and transpired into me and my half-sister. But my half-sister and I actually have a very good relationship. We talk weekly, and we've done our best, everything we can, to acknowledge these things so that we don't keep passing them on, generational trauma.
Well, I want to interject and not make, when you say it was selfish, I don't think that was selfish. I think it was a healing process that allowed you to have closure to an extent, but then to also have that opening to know that
what happened
yeah. And to have that, so I don't think that's a selfish thing. So,
thank you.
Just want to share that point, because I just laid on my heart to say that, because I think that it was bravery. Yeah. I don't think it was selfishness. I think it was bravery. So give yourself credit for that.
Well, thank you. And I was also met with an answer that not many people are met with. And he, what he said, I wanted you. He was like, I don't know if I'm delusional, but I thought that up until the day I would get released, if that would ever happen, that you would come back to me and you would be my daughter. So, and a lot of people, they'll be given up for adoption, and they end up finding their birth parents, and their birth parents say, don't call here, don't text here, we gave you away for a reason, if you know what I mean. But it was a totally different story. So that did help me heal, hearing his perspective.
Mom passed first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he passed when I was 23, so just 2 years ago. So he was incarcerated and very ill for the majority of his life.
Well, let's go back. Let's jump back to high school, I think, because that fight sounded like that was middle school with your friend. Mm-hmm. What were your high school years like?
Amazing. We moved on. I was a cheerleader all through high school. I was one of 2 freshmen to make the varsity team my freshman year. So I just jumped into that. I did, student council, key club, and I had a great group of friends. I had a high school sweetheart, at the time. Everything I ever wanted. And I also, because of my adoption, I had a tuition waiver to attend public university in Florida. So I had my, kind of eyes set on that. Mm-hmm. And
so high school was probably, if I had to guess, maybe like your best years up to this point. You were just kind of feeling
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those were really good years, just carefree. I was working for my mom, so I made really good money. I was an art instructor, had a roof over my head, dinner every single night, stability. But I was very excited to leave that and go to college. I just didn't realize all of the other things that would come with that.
So and I feel like the freedom that maybe you had the quiet time, where high school was busy, 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 and then all of a sudden maybe it got a little quiet.
Mm-hmm. Well, also that friend group, that core friend group, they understood my story and they accepted my story they accepted it. And they understood that there were going to be times when they wouldn't understand why I was upset or what I was going through, but they were still there for me anyways. They would say like, oh, Tiana's crazy, but we still love her type of thing.
Right.
And then it was when I kind of got jolted out of that.
Start all over again.
Yeah, and college kids aren't that nice either.
No, they're not.
So you didn't necessarily hide it in high school from your friend group. I mean,
no. Everybody knew.
Okay.
Especially when my biological mom passed, a lot of people knew. And I was very frank about it. I mean, I would just be like, yeah, she died. I was adopted and they were on drugs. And people would just kind of look at me sideways. But the ones who were true and real, they stuck around. And they're still, I mean, life friends. I would call upon any of those girls.
Well, that's amazing because not a lot of people have that,
Definitely.
So even through the trials, you're blessed to have those good friends to support you. Mm-hmm. And then when you moved on to college, you had to start all over again. So here we go.
Yeah.
What happened?
People seemed to be accepting, but
where'd you go to school? I'm sorry.
Florida Gulf Coast University, Southwest Florida in Fort Myers there. I did sorority, so I kind of, not to be judgmental, because it was me as well, but looking back, I surrounded myself with the same type of cookie cutter that I had come from in Georgia. So I went to the sorority life, and it's not rude to assume that these people have money because this is an extracurricular thing they're paying for. So a lot of those people have help from their parents. So I just found myself again very different from the people I surrounded myself by, and not to say that many of them didn't have stories and we connected on that level. But I just felt like I wasn't understood. I didn't fit in again.
I understand. I get that.
So did you have, what was college like for you?
The first couple of years were good. And then I guess I started, partying more than, so when I turned 18, here's a big important fact too. Todd, my biological father, was able to start reaching out to me again. So he started calling me on the phone when I moved out of the house. At that point, I also started receiving communications from my half-siblings. So then I would share, so now it was a kind of a different story. Like my friends in college knew of my story. Oh, okay, she was adopted, she's okay, she moved on from that. Now it's like my life is a movie. My biological father, who I haven't talked to in 10 plus years, is calling me. I have letters from people I don't know wanting to meet up.
Oh, wow.
So it was finally when I started inviting those people back into my life and acknowledging the negative things that I did go through and what my life kind of could have been. That's when it all hit me again, and my mental health took a decline. But I can't say, I went out too much. I didn't focus on me, but like I said, I was like, I'm good. I'm with all these people. Right. We're all good. We're all wearing the same color shirt, same color shoes. We're all good.
Yeah.
But that's not always how it is.
So they couldn't. So legally, they couldn't reach out to you at 18, or did it just happen?
Nope.
To be
That's all.
So at 18, they could legally reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. They would send things to my parents, but my mom would occasionally tell me, but I think she saw me doing well, and so she
protected you.
Yeah, they just wanted to protect me. Like she's a kid right now. She just let her go to school and do her activities and play with her friends.
And from a parent perspective, all the things that you went through, we're like mama bear. So, I have those extra little spidey tingly senses that I'm going to protect her and I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure she doesn't hurt
For the first couple of years, my mom, she was terrified somebody would try to come steal me back.
Oh, yeah. I didn't.
So she would watch me like a hawk. We had passwords. I couldn't get into anyone's car without a password. Yeah. So.
And I'm sure it's tough on her too, like trying to balance that. Do I talk to her about it? Do I show her this letter? Or do I not? I'm sure it wasn't just an easy the easiest decision for her to like just rip it up and throw it away. I'm sure it weighed on her, and I'm sure that her and Colin had a lot of conversations behind the scenes about how to handle it and all of that too. So you kind of had everything going well and all that, but you kind of had a lid on everything. So then whenever you're 18, it's kind of like you pull that lid up. And it sounds like from just our conversations before this, like when you pulled that lid up, a lot of stuff came out.
And I started, a lot of stuff came out, and I started looking into it. Yeah, okay. I started getting interested. One of the things I also did is I paid for a report of their arrest records, and I was born in January of 1998, so I particularly cared about Isela and her drug use and arrest records in 1997, and so I did find that in November of 1997, now she could have been selling, but she was arrested for possession of crack cocaine, and she spent time in jail while she was pregnant with me. So that was another thing that shook me to my core. Now, what does this mean? Because, like I said, I had started partying. I had started dabbling in my own things that I shouldn't have dabbled in, and all that came crashing down on me very quickly.
And that's really, relatively speaking, like you're still young. So we're not talking about that long ago.
No, this is in the past 4 years. My parents, I think they're just as surprised as everybody that I was able to turn it around and kind of wake myself up. Like, what are you doing? Which kind of life do you want? Yeah.
Well, let's kind of jump in, getting to where you're at now, kind of having gone through the story. I'll just ask you a tough question. Do you feel like you're good now, or do you feel like that you're on shaky ground, or do you feel more solid than you felt?
I do take Prozac, so I feel like that has helped. Yeah. I did go to therapy, but I did acknowledge that I need help outside of just the everyday average person. I know we talked about this, but I still struggle to forgive myself for letting myself go into those dark parts of my life. And just letting myself hit rock bottom. And I'm sure I haven't even experienced. I'm still young. There's still things I'm going to go through. But I think I'm still working on that. I still get embarrassed because everyone saw me in that really tough time and they didn't know how to help. Like my parents, my mom, she would just about drive and come get me. Like she was for sure. She was like, no, you're getting in my car. But my friends and stuff, like they were scared because they were like, this isn't the girl we grew up with. We don't really know. So I still feel embarrassment about it, and I still trying to forgive myself. But otherwise, I do feel good, and I feel proud of the turnaround I've made.
Well, strength comes from your story. And like we talked last time about the forgiveness, I know that, I was like, okay, that's one of the things I want you to work on is to forgive, because we all have made not so good choices. It doesn't make us bad people. It doesn't, but for the longest time we do think it does. And we all we'd have to have a couple of sessions for me to sit and talk about some of the things that I've done and a lot of people do know my story, but I just want you to know you sharing this is strength, and you coming here, not just the conversations we've had, but I watched your TED Talk and was moved by that. And that's when I was like, I cannot wait to meet her. And then I got to meet you and have the conversations. And then now having the pleasure of sitting across from you and to admire you, and then to also help you through your struggle and to be able to pray for you, to help reach those that are going through some of the similar things. Like you said, everybody has their different traumas, but you have a specific story that can help so many people. And I know that has to be hard to come here and share that story.
But we are not defined by our traumas. We're not defined by our mistakes. 100%. So that is the silver lining out of all of this.
Correct.
And what's funny is whenever we met, it was funny because something popped up on Facebook, and I saw a picture of her, and I was like, oh, that's Tiana. That's who I just met earlier. And I was like, I'll add her as a friend. And one of the first things that I saw was this video, and I watched it, and I had just left the store, and I went back home, and I literally drove all the way back up here, and I was like, she's like, oh, you're back. And I was like, come here. And I was like, I came all the way back to give you a hug. And I was like, because your story, I'm not going to say any names or anything like that, but my family personally, there's several people in my family who have overcome some pretty serious traumatic events, actually very similar to yours, and they're doing very well, and they're doing well in their lives, and they're young like you, and they've had a lot of things to overcome. So it really, like, stories like this are really impactful to me. So whenever I heard that, I really want to help you get your story out.
Melissa and Marley cried. I showed them the video, the speech, and they cried.
For sure.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
And then shifting gears, and we'll since kind of not shifting completely, but kind of going off of this is now that we kind of know your story, I kind of want to talk for a little bit about helping others, and let's just have a conversation about the impacts of some of these things, and let's talk trauma a little bit. Doesn't necessarily have to be your story, but just your thoughts on some of this stuff, because we see it so much as educators. We see so much trauma in all different areas. So I don't know where I'm going with that. What do you think?
I think if somebody out there is watching this that is going through either the same or going through something, and they feel like they have no one, what could you tell them?
You're not alone, and you have to find somebody, whether it's your friend on the bus, your aunt, your guidance counselor. It's not healthy to keep it all in. That's exactly what happened to me, and you just can't keep it all in. And I would say for those seeing young kids go through this and not knowing how to help, just be there. Just be an ear and just try not to judge, because kids sometimes act out and because there's something else that they're missing. So try not to, oh my gosh, the worst kid ever, you didn't get this right, that right, and dive a little bit deeper into it. How are you doing today? You know, when your kid's late to class, how's everything? Did you eat breakfast today? You know, those important things, instead of, well, you're late.
Right.
Which I know these things are important in life. But
yeah. Well, one of the things that, for me personally, you're a much better educator than
I wouldn't say that.
Than I'll ever be. But
I've just been in it longer.
one of the things that I had to learn was I'm a fixer by nature. So I would hear these stories, and I would always feel like I had to have the answer. And then it hit me. I was like, you know what? They're not really, my students or whoever it may be, they're not necessarily sharing it for me to fix their problems. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they just need that ear. And it took a little maturity on my side to understand that. Would you agree? Is that
definitely fair? And you have to give yourself grace, because it's hard not to want to fix it. And I'm sure my mom and my aunt and my dad and my entire family, they just wanted to fix it so bad. But that's a huge part of it, is recognizing you can, guide them on this river raft, but you can't take them out of the river. And
I think from the perspective of going through it, your significant other, your friends, your family want to fix it for you. So I've learned to go, look, I don't want you to fix it. I just need you to listen. Mm-hmm. So, but I figured that out at 50. I'm 52. So it took a little while. But I finally just got to the point, because my husband's a fixer.
Yeah.
And so when I'm, sometimes I'm just like, okay, I've got to go to my friends and talk about this, because, but in all reality, he wants to fix it for me. And so sometimes I just go to him and I'm like, okay, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen, because I don't have anybody else to talk to about this. Mm-hmm. So I just need you to help me through it. Yeah. So I think just that communication piece is important, but it's hard for an adolescent kid to say that. It's hard for a 20-year-old to say that. Definitely. Because we don't want to burden. That's just our instinct as people, is not to burden.
Well, sometimes you got to sit in the uncomfortable pain too.
Correct.
You can't fix it. You've got to sit through it, hold their hand through it, and be uncomfortable to get to the other side.
I like that, uncomfortable pain. I don't think I've ever really heard it quite that way. It makes 100% sense to know that you have somebody to go through that uncomfortable with you.
And I think that what you said a second ago is worth repeating, about anybody out there at a younger age can say, hey,
just listen.
You don't really have to fix it. I'm not asking you for that. I just need somebody to talk to.
Definitely.
Because that is hard that's something that you have to get with wisdom and maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could pass that wisdom on a younger person, hopefully somebody out there will get something from that.
Because there have been times I've shut my classroom door, my office door, depending on where I was in my educational journey, and have cried because I, kept it together and just like, oh, and then I hit my knees and then just realized that's really all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And just to listen, because you can't fix it. You can't go home with them. You can't, but I know what you have shared through our conversations and even today, just that piece of listening, the relationship, just kind of summing it up, and then protecting uncomfortably maybe sometimes, but then to also know that you may never understand. If you've never been adopted or you've never had a stepchild or you've never been in a blended family, you will not understand it. However, you can be there to listen, to guide, and to
empathize.
Support and empathize so much. So for the adults, when you went through that process, and your high school years were pretty good, but when you went into that journey of those higher teenage years, or the young adult, what would you say to that young adult that maybe is out there that is struggling, that doesn't have a guidance counselor, doesn't have a teacher, just sits in their apartment or their house or their dorm room in the evenings feeling like there's no one?
It doesn't last forever. You have to pick yourself up at some point, and happiness is a choice, but it doesn't last forever. Life is a continuous up and down hill. Like the Mississippi River, the journeys we're going to go through, it's going to go up and down. And I'm sure even a non-comparable sad or bad time in your life, everyone can remember a bad time that eventually got better.
Yeah.
So it gets better.
Good advice.
Yeah. Great advice. Yeah. Let's talk a minute about like the healing. I kind of want to focus on that because you've mentioned a couple different things. So far I've picked up on like surrounding yourself with good friends. You mentioned therapy. You mentioned medicine, which I'm glad that you did. It's not just friends. It's surrounding yourself with the right group of friends. Can you speak to the importance of friends, therapy, medicine, and anything else?
Definitely.
And clarify, because it's not just friends, right?
Well, so in that period after college, when I was expressing how embarrassed I was, most of my friends were my mom's friends. So, and that was okay. I had to get over that too. Most of my friends were 20 plus years older than me, but they had that wisdom and that knowledge that life is a journey and it's going to get better. They have better taste in wine and that was another thing. Friends come in all shapes and sizes. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm not included in the cool group at my whatever, local kids my age, but there's someone else there for you. And sometimes the best friends are found where you're least expecting it.
Yeah, for sure. And that mentor, like, that friendship mentor is huge.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then also, like, what about the therapy and the medicine part? Because I think the reason that I'm kind of pouncing on this is because I want to, one of the things that's important to me is to erase the stigma of some of these things.
I've gotten over it. I mean, once you sit so low where I was sitting and I couldn't think of a reason that I should be on this earth besides because my mom would be really upset and my family would be really upset. Once you've come from that deep depth and darkness, you're like proud of it. Yes, I went to therapy. It's a luxury. Therapy is expensive. That is a luxury. If you can afford that, be thankful for it. Medicine is also a luxury, I consider. So yeah, I want to share. Anyone that can say what you want about me. I'm putting myself first and I'm healing the parts that need to be healed, and not a lot of people can say that.
Well, and that's why I wanted you to say it, because I think it's important for a smart, beautiful young lady to say that, because I think that there's kids out there who will look up to you, who will see your strength and find the strength in themselves through you saying that. Yeah. And I think that's why I wanted you to say it, because It is important. There's no shame in it. I mean,
Nobody has it all figured out.
I honestly, like, if somebody tells me they went to therapy, I don't even think twice about it.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, we live in a crazy world these days. I mean, there's so much, and I don't mean crazy like that. I mean crazy as in chaotic. We all move so fast, and there's so many. It's an instant gratification world, and it's a really tough time to be alive with social media. It's a lot of good. But there's
Everyone's life looks perfect online.
It's harder out there. Well, and talk about that real quick too, about comparison. Did you have any of that?
Oh, of course. Oh my gosh. I mean, growing up with the families, I wanted the monogrammed letter of our last name on our front door that, you know, my mom saved my little footprint, my first diaper. And I remember there was this thing that kids would do, what time you were born. It was in like grade school. It was just a thing to know what time you were born and how much you weighed and all that stuff. Well, I didn't know that. And I felt so offended that they would even bring that to the attention.
Yeah.
But you learn to get over those things.
See, it's the little things you don't think about,
like
right? For a
10,
kid.
13.
Correct. And you're like, oh. But I remember, this is actually really sweet. For one of my birthdays, my mom actually, public records, she looked up all that information. And so she gave me a framed breakdown of, you know, how much I weighed, what time I was born at, all those little things. So,
well, you know, we always had parent nights, and then I can remember when I came into a position where I was helping with that, where it was family night, because sometimes they're not with their parents, and a lot of our kids are being raised by grandparents for whatever reason, and, you know, aunts, uncles, and parents are working, and so that, you know, and so it brought to my attention early on to just, you know, that family night. So instead of calling it parents, you know, be cognizant enough to like, hey, let's branch out and say family night, because sometimes it's big sister, well, you know, big brother bringing because parents are working. So it's just kind of that realm of including all of the parts of the family that are consistent in a kid and young adult's life to be supportive and encouraging. And then also friends. I mean, you know, I've had situations where friends pick up, you know, I had friends that picked up my kids and helped me out with that. So
it's a village.
It is a village. And it's a, you know, a way to provide stability in so many other ways. So if you had to give one piece of advice, kind of putting you on that, one piece of advice to someone that's struggling right now, the holidays are coming up, just through your journey, what are some pieces besides just the friendship and the therapy piece when you're sitting alone to be your best friend? How can you give advice to people that you are your best friend? So speak to yourself as you would someone you care about. Maybe
imagine your younger self. Try to speak to your younger 5 or 6 year old self that doesn't know any better. And I'd also like to tack on there, therapy to me and in my eyes is getting a $5 canvas from Walmart and some paint and painting, going to the gym, taking a walk. There's many things that people can do, and that's their therapy. Singing your heart out. Everyone loves a good long drive to a song that they can't sing, but they're going to anyways.
I sound really good in my car by myself.
Me too. I'm like, woohoo, I'm Mariah Carey up in here. But yeah, it's not just... you can do those types of things.
And a really good backup dancer when I need to.
And just to tack on too is a couple of points that I want to make before we get out of here is that just for any viewers out there to understand, you really never know what people are going through. Everybody is carrying something with them, and everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a journey, and I try to share. People see me all the time. I always have a smile on my face, and I'm always out in the community trying to help others and stuff like that. And I tell people, I'm helping others in some ways. I love to help others, but it started as therapy for me because I went through some really hard years with depression and just whatever. I struggled mentally. And I like to share that with people because I hope that they can look at me and be like, he's a happy dude. But it all started for me with my therapy is helping others. the more I help others, there's a saying, you can't hit somebody with a little sun without. Can't hit somebody with sunshine without getting a little bit on yourself or something like that. So somebody told me that whenever I was kind of at my lowest point, and I said, let me just try to help some. Let me do something outside of my brain. Mm-hmm. Let me get out of my head.
You can't make yourself happy, make someone else happy.
Yeah, and so for me, I hope somebody watching this will get that out of it. Is that's a great starting place, just to help others. And I think that's kind of where you're at now from our conversations. Is you're saying, I want to help others. I want to talk to kids, and I want to do this. And so, I mean, I think that you're kind of right there as far as I think that you're going to blossom into something in our community that's valuable. I mean, there's a lot of value. Somebody with a story that's willing to share is very valuable to our kids out there.
I hope so. It's always been my dream to change the system, if you will, the foster care and the whole social worker DFACS, all these systems. They need a lot of help. So hopefully one by one we can turn some stones over.
Well, and we had talked about my son, you know, and many of our viewers know Eric, and he is now in that life of being that social worker and figuring out how to help kids. And so through some of the trauma he's been through, that is his outlet of helping others. And he's done amazing things, and that's come from the people he works with, not just mama. That's just not mama talk. So I'm super proud of both of my children in that respect because they are giving. But Eric is going to, you know, set the world on fire, I think, and know through what he's been through, the story he has to tell, and then which is not quite the same as yours, but some parts of it are. And for, you know, us to sit back and realize, hey, it's a journey forever. And so I will always have to be there for my children and my stepson and his family that's coming along. So, you know, it's that love for others, even if they're not biological. And so I admire you for coming on and sharing it because I know without a doubt, I know it's blessed me, but I know there's people out there that need to hear you.
Thank you.
And so for you to share your story just speaks volumes of you and what you plan to do to help others. And we are thankful for you for doing that.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And if anyone feels alone this holiday season, I'm here. I know either of you would pick up the phone and talk to somebody, but even a stranger, you know, can reach out to anybody.
Yeah. And
for sure.
So what we'll do before we get out of here, we'll just go this way. And I always like to give people a last word. I guess my last word from all of this is I want to say, for me personally, God has been a big part of my journey too. I want to make sure to say that because I don't. People say whatever they want to say. It's my journey, and I'm not on the first row at the church every Sunday morning. I'm not that guy, but I'm in contact with God all day, every day. I pray hard. I trust hard. I've been through a lot, but I know that God's got my back, and I can get through anything as long as I continue to lean on Him. So I just want to make sure to add that as far as my last word, and then and I appreciate you coming out, and then let you add, and then we'll give you your last word for whatever you want to say.
And I think kind of piggybacking on what I shared earlier and with you, the faith piece, and of course my relationship with Christ and God as well, has guided through what I've been through. And what you have said about sit through the uncomfortable, I do that often. And even with the adults out there, of the children I work with, I want them to know when I sit in that uncomfortable position and I have to make those uncomfortable phone calls, I always put the safety and love of children ahead of me, ahead of what adults, because sometimes adults make decisions that aren't always best for kids. And so we have to come together and call each other kind of out on it when we don't, but to also know and trust. And I know it's so hard to trust, but I pray to learn to trust each other again and to find your trust circle and lean on that. And so I think it starts with finding the friends that have the same common goals as you do and that are in touch with their spiritual journey through, you know, our Father, and we are His children. And so we are all connected through that. We're all biologically, you know, connected and have a need to have people. So we can't shut. I mean, when I go through tough stuff, sometimes I just shut the door and I want to be by myself, and I don't last very long that way, and it doesn't do well for me. But I've learned over the years to find at least one person that I can put in my trust circle. And then when I'm hurt by that person, not give other people a chance. So just because that one person may have hurt you with whatever you trusted them with, don't build the wall up so big to where you don't trust anybody, because that's lonely. I've done it, and I've been lonely. And so I just want to encourage people to not take your past of being burned and not learning to trust somebody else.
I will just.
That was kind of long. I didn't mean to go that long.
Good stuff. Hey,
I will just say it's easy to feel sorry for yourself, but this life is what you make it. Happiness is a choice. And yeah, I've also recently opened my arms a little more to God. Instead of where I grew up, I was kind of, rolling my eyes at it because I was like, oh, that's only for the perfect families who have it all figured out. But now I'm realizing, just as you've said, we're all his children. So I've found some comfort in my relationship, my own personal relationship with God as well.
Oh, I love that you said that, because I think a lot of people hesitate to find that church family because of a situation maybe they've been through before. And once again, don't put your walls up high enough to where you don't allow, because yes, you have that meaningful relationship. But someone it was Brother Bart at Parkway, and one of the things he said was, it's just like a marriage or a friendship. You want that constant celebration together, and if you don't do that, then you lose connection. So I think that's surrounding yourself with that family, that church family, is important in that respect, to be sure that you stay connected.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate you. And that's one of the things I love about this show is we can't really be canceled. I don't care. Somebody can call. They're going to call me.
And complain about what we were talking about.
All complaints come to me, so it's all good. I'm just going to tell you I'm not worried about it. And we're going to keep doing what we do. So we're all good. We can solve the world's problems, and we can have real conversations, and we can be open, and we can be honest, and
you don't have to agree.
Yeah,
you don't have to agree with it. Just be
exactly.
Open-minded and listen and show empathy and protection and protect our youth.
That's right, and the next generation coming along. So anyway, you'll be seeing more. I appreciate everybody watching this. You guys will be seeing more of Tiana, because we're gonna work together on some things, and we're gonna get some things going. I'm really eyeballing the spring to try to springboard. No pun intended. Try to springboard some things up.
It's gonna be great. Can't wait.
But yeah, and you've got a lot to offer. So it's just us putting you in the right place, helping you get to the right places, opening them doors, and then you kicking them down. So we appreciate all of you guys watching this. I really hope that you got something out of it. Share it with your kids, your neighbors, your friends, whoever you think might need some help. Please share it, because we're all open books here, it seems like, and we're all passionate about helping you. Thank you to all of our awesome partners who give us the opportunity to have these conversations. If you see those guys on the screen right now, make sure to tell them thank you, because what we're doing here is really unique, and I think it's really special to have these conversations. So thank you to all of them. Thank you to everybody out there. God bless everybody out there. And as always,
have a champion day. Yay!
Hey guys, Ronnie Calhoun here with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight. We're out at our awesome partners, Gregg Veterinary Clinic, and we are in the back in the Barkley Pet Hotel and Spa. I'm standing in the Magnolia Bell Suite, which is one of 5 elite boarding suites available to your 4-legged furry friends when you travel this summer. Each suite comes with a private bed, flat screen TV, 24/7 video monitoring, and a sliding door so your pet feels like they're home. They provide one-on-one walking and activities in a fenced-in private backyard. So call Gregg Vet Hospital today and request your pet suite at the Barkley Pet Hotel and Spa. They'll leave the light on for you. Call Gregg Veterinary Hospital today.
My name is Yvonne Ivory. I'm the lab director here at Trinity Medical. I have 40 years of medical laboratory experience.
Hello, my name is Mary Cubic. I am Trinity Medical Outpatient Specialist, and I've been doing this for over 40 years.
Our lab offers numerous services. We have an exceptional outpatient department. We provide phlebotomies and venipunctures for tests requested by physicians. Trinity Lab has the newest, most innovative equipment for specimen processing, yielding quick turnaround times for results. Doctors are able to diagnose and treat patients in a timely manner for faster healing. Our newest addition is our in-house microbiology department.
Hi, I'm Fayla Giddon, and I am the lead microbiology tech here at Trinity Medical. I have over 24 years of experience, and this is our brand new microbiology department. So if the doctors suspect infection, that's where we bring the cultures back here. We set them up on different types of media, depending on what type of culture it is. So if we have some growth, it'll be something like this. So we do some offline tests where we determine if it's gram positive, gram negative, and then we're able to set it up on our machines and it's able to tell us the organism. It gives us an ID, and it also gives us a sensitivity, which shows the doctor what drug will treat the patient and kill the organism.
Here at Trinity, we are committed to providing excellent patient care and services to promote the healing of our patients and our community.
It's Shannon with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight. If you like what we're doing, be sure to follow, like, share, and even comment on all our content. Also, visit MissLouChampions.com to sign up for our newsletter and to receive other information, as well as the opportunity to receive some awesome prizes. Thank you, Miss Lou, for your continued support, and as always, have a champion day.